let's kick this off. Welcome, everyone. First things first, Happy New Year. I hope you all had a good time off. I hope everybody managed to disconnect a little bit throughout the festive season. Also, nice Christmas if you're celebrating and observing that. Yeah, just a good time of the year to kind of like recharge a little bit. Certainly, we did so in Backstage. It's Spotify as well. In the community. So I think today's agenda is going to be quite lean. With respect to myself, I was out for almost half a year on parental leave, so this is my first community session in a long time. Good to see you all. Good to see so many good things happening in the community. We have a new backend, working in the front end. There's talks of a new UI library. There's so much good stuff happening. So let's dive in. For today, we're gonna quickly hit the release highlights of today's release. I just want to add after that a quick mention of the BackstageCon and KubeCon. The agenda is fresh out of the oven this morning, so there's more happening in there. And then we're gonna, as always, open the floor if there are questions, concerns, or feedback coming up from the community. But let's dive in with the release highlights. We shipped another stable release yesterday, as we always do, the day before the community sessions, the 135. There's been a couple of changes in there that I wanted to quickly touch base on. First things first, there's a breaking change. I've been catching up with what has been happening, and I think this has happened progressively through the last couple of months, so this should not be a surprise, but we are slowly decommissioning the old backend system from various plugins. And I think in 135, it's the signals backend and the search backend module catalog that have dropped this old backend support in favor of the new one. So if you're using those plugins, just make sure you're aware of this. This is the breaking change in 135. Then also moving on, the experimental Vite support has been removed in the CLI. There's another flag that can be used to kind of like maintain the ability to do those bundle performance improvements. But heads up, the Vite flag has been retired. Moreover, we used to have an issue with the single CPU machines that couldn't properly run yarn dev to start in parallel the app in the backend. That has been fixed concurrency wise. And speaking of concurrency, the endpoint in catalog in the that backs up the entities also has improved concurrency there. Whenever you turn on the query streaming mode, we're no longer waiting on the current batch to be written in the response before you kind of like fetch the next one. So nice improvement in there. And then last but not least, there's a backend error middleware that has been added by default. So in case you had to write on your own, that metadata is already enriched in the context plugin in there. So you can kind of like drop any custom stuff that you may have had before that. Now, I wanted to end with a couple of nice contributions that we got in this release and made their way into the final release. One of them was the GitHub entity provider ingestion reliability. I think it was an issue for orgs that were larger. There are a certain number in the thousands or tens of thousands. And that was kind of like hitting the rate limiting API. So that has been fixed. And I want to make sure I'm pronouncing correct. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for that contribution of kind of like mechanism to pause in there to work around the rate limiting. So that is pretty awesome. Then moreover, the task ID is now available both in the template and in the action context. So a nice improvement in there for the context. And then also, sorry, thank you, Fabio, for that. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. And last but not least, the proxy plugin has a new extension point that allows you to programmatically configure proxy endpoints. Thank you so much for that, Matt. That said, I think that concludes the roughly release highlights of yesterday. I'm going to pause just for a brief second in case I missed anything. I'm looking at the maintainer folks in my team. Anything that I may have missed? Going once. I see Patrick. Perfect. All right. Do ping if I missed anyone or the lovely contributions that we got in there. appreciate that. And as always, thank you to the maintainer team, to the contributors, and to much the entire ecosystem and the community for making all of this happen. Moving on, I just wanted to let you all know, incidentally, I was preparing the slide just now. I wasn't sure if the agenda is or when the agenda was going to be published, but I saw it was published this morning, so you can just browse and find the agenda for KubeCon launched. So there's some of us will, or most of us will be in London, so mind the gap. I hope to see you there. I hope to engage. I've been at Spotify for 3 years, and surprisingly, this is my first BackstageCon and KubeCon that actually make it to, so I'm very, very excited. I've been to other conferences, but not BackstageCon and KubeCon, so hopefully I get to cross paths with some of you there. And again, there's a lot of interesting talks coming up and whatnot. Is over to the agenda to have a look at what to expect in a sneak peek. Cool. That said, if there are no other comments, I'm just going to open the floor quickly for any potential comments, feedback, concerns, questions, anything that may arise from the community at this point.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So not expecting really anything out of this, but I am kind of curious from a community perspective and a maintainer perspective. Has there been any conversation about the choice or use of Discord as the primary communication mechanism for the community? The reason I bring it up is getting access within our organization has created a lot of churn with our InfoSec individuals, given the risks around Discord and its file sharing, and maybe it's set up not necessarily for typical large organizations in comparison to like maybe other platforms like Slack or something. So I was curious if any others are running into that, or if there was any consideration of other platforms.
That's a very good question, to be honest. I'm looking at my team, curious if anyone wants to take that one. I don't remember us discussing. I know obviously like the medium of communication is always a topic, and whether we choose the right tool and how to make sure that obviously we make the best of the both worlds in terms of security, but also kind of like openness. But I'm not sure if there have been any recent conversations on that. But since I was out for half a year, maybe I'm wrong. Ben, Patrick, Vincenzo, I see you at the top of my screen here off the top of my head. Anything that you have in mind there?
The very short answer is no, we haven't discussed it, at least not in a good while. We did discuss it initially. Slack is of course tricky with, I believe it at least used to be and probably still is the case that you have quite short message retention on community servers. There is the CNCF Slack though, which is an option. I don't know exactly how kind of we could structure channels and so on there. Slack has added more features. We do use the Discord kind of voice and video chat every now and then, which is very good. Slack has added some of that after the fact, which maybe makes it a better option now.
What are other projects in the CNCF ecosystem using, out of curiosity? Or it depends?
I mean, a lot of the CNCF projects are in that Slack, but they're not. But I wouldn't say I'm not aware of. Let's say that Linkerd has a separate one as well, a separate Slack org for the community use case. They don't really use the CNCF one so much. I think the CNCF one is very high level. It's more questions, where do I find the community for this project, really?
Yeah, Slack doesn't quite give you this nice, when it's such a big shared one, it doesn't quite give you the same nice kind of list of channels that are available. Kind of need to join the channels yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to have, I mean, the TypeScript Discord server is a very, very advanced use of Discord, and definitely kind of trying to take some inspiration from how they set up their community Discord a little bit, because it's just so easy to use. Like you go in, you get greeted by bots and stuff like that. I think that's kind of hard to do, especially in Slack, really. Yeah, I think there was also some limitations for like the amount of users that we could have in Slack initially when we looked at it. I mean, the Discord users are like, I don't know how many users we've got now, but it's getting up to tens of thousands. So I'm sure it's possible. Maybe it's fine to just move some stuff over to Slack, but yeah, it's not something we've had a real conversation about recently. But I mean, I have seen other people have this barrier to entry, I guess, from corporate and from other companies. We see a lot of people using the web browser option because they can't actually install Discord, for instance. Yes. Yeah, there's a few thousand members in there.
There would be a lot of money on Slack if we actually wanted message retention.
Yes. It's a lot of people.
Yeah,
And we do recognize that it's like not everybody is able to join the Discord community. It might be the case for Slack as well. Don't know. So we do still have kind of all kind of discussions open on the GitHub still. Another potential option, which is worthwhile discussing, I think, is to re-enable GitHub discussions as a kind of another async forum for more community discussions. We disabled it because we didn't want kind of both GitHub issues, discussions, and the support channel on Discord, but that might be an option as well.
Yeah, I'll just add, I think you already framed it, Patrick, but I'll just add from my experience, in general, moves like this, it's kind of like never-ending sort of like bike shed, because the moment you move to Slack, then there's going to be a large number of people that will complain that there's an issue with Slack as well, or kind of like keep it open. And yeah, so it's kind of like like you said, it's very difficult to find something to make sure everyone's happy. I think it's all about compromise in the end, I think.
I'm about hoping that Discord maybe sees their potential as a general communication platforms and makes it a bit more friendly to large organizations, because it's a pretty good platform otherwise.
Cool. I'm catching up here with the meeting chat as well. Like quite a with it's a good topic to continue conversation, but to kind of like drive this to the a conclusion. I don't think we're actively exploring moving, but again, that's not to say that will always be that way. So if at some point we need to raise this question, we'll explore, and we'll keep this chat open with the community on what's the best outcome forward. But is that does that answer your question, Zachary? I know you said you weren't looking for, obviously expecting to change, but is this sort of like answering your initial question?
It is, and it's what I expected, right? I wasn't expecting any sort of change, more of wanting to understand. I think Corey kind of chimed in with are we more the exception to the rule, which we kind of expect we are, but didn't know if there were others out there that had similar issues.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for bringing that up. If there's no other sort of like thoughts on this matter, just want to make sure I ask again, any other questions or thoughts or concerns that folks have in their mind?
I had a question about the Backstage Yarn plugin. If no one else has anything,
Go ahead, Corey.
just wondering, is it still being actively worked on, or is it considered mostly done, or just kind of what's the future of it? I found a couple interesting things yesterday about, so if I move to that plugin and all the package JSONs now have that backstage reference for the version, and then I do a Yarn workspace backend add and add a new backstage dependency that I didn't add before, it gets added with the actual version. For example, instead of the backstage reference, and I wasn't sure what the supported way to address that was, and if maybe a future release of that would automatically put that reference in there for me, like I would expect, or is that just kind of the way it's going to be? And I'm not sure I'm not sure the supported way to fix that when it happens.
It's being actively worked on with the goal of have it not be actively worked on, in the sense that it's kind of done and works. Your case there, I don't think anyone has brought that up yet. I don't know if there's a workaround. I don't think so, but I'm not sure. Other than obviously editing package JSON manually. It sounds like something that the plugin might be able to handle. No plan to address that right now though, but if you want to create an issue in the open source, maybe there's someone that would want to have a look at that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Corey. Pausing for a second because there are any comments on that or any other questions.
Yeah, I have a question on the catalog performance improvements.
Go ahead, Sandeep.
So I know I've seen in the list of release highlights that there's some work done. So is it completely done, or is there going to be more changes? And are there any benchmarking that is being done to identify based on the load of a catalog, the response times?
No more work being done right now, at least. I believe the last bit was in the 135 release. It's important to enable this, the flag, the config flag that's mentioned in the release notes, to get not all of the improvements, but some of the improvements. You need to enable that flag for them to be enabled. That flag will be default in catalog 2.0. It's just that we didn't want to break existing consumers of the catalog.
Okay, thank you.
As for benchmarks, there are some performance tests in the catalog itself, but we don't, no published benchmarks or anything like that at the moment. Might be able to share some numbers of what we see internally if it's of interest.
Thank you. I think that would help, and but I think there's something that we are working on internally to see what we can do. And this 1.35, I think we're trying to test it out. We are not done yet, but would definitely help. We've been working with Andre a little bit on that, but it would definitely help.
I can just throw out some quick numbers from memory. I think in an internal catalog with somewhere between 100 to 200,000 entities, when there are complex queries that cannot have multiple filters, they take anywhere from half a second to up to 2 to 3 seconds. If it's a tricky one, that ends up scanning the catalog, the entities table. For more simple queries, especially like fetching single entities, we're down in the tens of milliseconds, if I remember correctly. There, right, Ben?
Yeah.
For processing and entity providers, like the performance on that end, we're not seeing any issues. Most of what we've been struggling with there, though, is database replication, which I'm not sure if it's an issue that a lot of people are facing.
I would say that if you're seeing something different to that, or something very different to that, please raise an issue. And let's have a dive in a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we probably have one of the most advanced deployments of the catalog, I guess, in the wild, and it seems to stand up for our use case. So if you're running into scaling issues at a much smaller catalog, we'd be interested to find out what's going on there. For sure.
Yep. I'll create an issue. Once we test this out with 1.35, if we see, if we don't, if we still do not see a lot of improvements, we'll definitely. Okay. Thank you.
And I believe our database instance is something on the order of, like, is it 32 cores, 128 gigabytes of memory, or something thereabouts, 100 gigabytes.
It is very OP, I would say also, but
yeah, it's over provisioned.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Sandeep. I did want to go back to Corey's question to follow up. I saw a comment in the chat. So on our side, I think, Patrick, you mentioned to his previous question to ask on Discourse, and I'm just reading from here that, yeah, there haven't been responses yet, and there's a Yarn Backstage CLI version bomb release specific version, where version is the current version for the reference in there. Wasn't sure if there was wasn't sure if there was a better way to do it. Sorry.
I think that is the workaround, really, is that you run that after you add the dependency to resolve it back to Backstage hat. But like Patrick said earlier, I think there is probably room that the plugin can hook into that add to actually resolve a different version. Because all it just needs to do is when you do yarn add, it just resolve Backstage hat, and then the plugin takes care of the rest. But it's obviously not hooked in that way. It's not detecting it's a Backstage dependency or whatnot. Yeah, I think an issue is probably the best place for this. I think the Mike is on parental at the minute, but we can have a look. He's out.
That is that contributed the plugin originally. Won't be working on it for a good while.
Yes,
but we are maintaining it in the meantime.
I hope that answered your question, Corey. So yeah, maybe follow up with an issue there, and then yeah, we can take it in there. Hopefully that clarified it. Cool. Pausing there for again, in case there are any reactions to these ones or any new questions that folks have in mind. I'll pause for a second. All right. Then going once, going twice. I don't see any hands. I don't see any hands raised, no comments in the chat. Happy to then conclude slightly earlier today. Take good care of you all. Have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you all next time. Thank you so much, everyone.